As you heard, my name's Laura Hamilton O'Hara. I'm the CEO of the Living Future Institute of Australia. And we really use buildings as a vehicle to create that world that is socially just, culturally rich, and ecologically restorative. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the challenges that we face. Andy already covered it plenty and set me up really beautifully in terms of the topics that I'm going to talk about. But this is the number that keeps me awake anyway. Depending on what you read, but more or less it falls into this. Buildings and the built environment are responsible for about 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, about 40% of all raw materials used on Earth, and about 40% of all the waste created. They're also, with the other big four of fashion, food, and energy, responsible for 90% of biodiversity loss. So huge impacts, but also a huge opportunity to create positive change as well. So what if, instead of thinking about the impacts and doing less bad, reducing that, which is also important, our role at the Living Future Institute of Australia is to think differently and to think, what if every act of design and construction could actually make the world a better place? Incidentally, this is the Sustainable Buildings Research Centre. Two really important things about that. Alan Green, who you hear about later, works here. And this is also the building that Andy spent 700 hours looking into materials on as well. So lovely that I chose that picture. And what we're really thinking about here is like not looking at less bad. So if we look at how code is developed early on, they're looking at trying to improve every single year. And whilst incremental improvement is important, our role in the built environment landscape is to think about, instead of less bad, what if we thought about what does good look like right from the start, starting from positive thinking and what has become known as regenerative design. Very, I guess, commonly used word, very buzzwordy at the moment, regenerative design. But at its heart, you can get really technical about it, and the Living Building Challenge does. At its heart, regenerative design means leave things better than you found them. It's as simple as that, at every level. So the Living Building Challenge itself is really using and leaning into nature as a metaphor. Everything about the Living Building Challenge is thinking about what if we could build things as beautifully, as simply, as efficiently, as rooted in place, as equitable as a flower. What if we could just do that? And we really use that metaphor quite a lot in the Living Building Challenge. All of our performance categories are called petals, and there are 7 of them: water, materials, place, energy, equity, health and happiness, and beauty. I'm not going to cover them all today because it will take a significant amount of time. But I wanted to talk about 2 in particular that you can really use and use the inspiration from the Living Building Challenge, which is the most stringent sustainability standard in the world in terms of the built environment. Not every building is going to do Living Building Challenge. Living buildings are meant to be that flag on a hill, that thing, that the moonshot that you're aiming for if you're really pushing and doing everything right. But those buildings then kind of cascade and create positive impacts throughout the entire system. So I wanted to take 2 of those things from the Living Building Challenge that are very easy and doable at home. And the first one, and it was almost like you set me up actually, the first one that I wanted to lean into was materials. So the Living Building Challenge intention with materials is to build with materials that are safe for all species throughout time. And there are 5 performance criteria. I wanted to just chat about a couple of them. One is red list chemicals. So red list chemicals are the chemicals that are commonly found in building products that are very harmful. We sort of casually refer them as Santa's naughty list of chemicals. You don't want to be on the red list. Responsible sourcing. How do you build with things that are locally found, as close to site as possible? And also certified. So maybe they've got some level of certification. Living economy sourcing is about close to site as possible. And then how do you make sure that you create as little waste as you can? In the Living Building Challenge, the minimum is 90% diversion from landfill. For categories like cardboard and paper, it's up to 99%. So that is the overall idea of the materials petal for the Living Building Challenge. I'm going to dig particularly into how we vet things for the red list, because I think it'll be really important, and it's obviously a question that's come up quite a bit. But first, a pop quiz. Does anybody know what this is? It's a green screen, yes? What else? It's a particular color with a particular story. Nature, it is green, but that probably is not the story I wanted to highlight. Algae, no. Acid green, you're getting closer for sure. Citrus. You are all right, but it's definitely not exactly the angle I'm going down. This is a very particular shade of green called Shire green. And it was discovered in 1975 by a Swedish chemist. And it was made from arsenic. It was a very popular color because green dyes were actually quite rare at the time. And so when he found this copper arsenic compound, it absolutely exploded in popularity. Just 100 years later, in Britain alone, between 500 and 700 tons per year of this dye were being made. And absolutely everything from wallpapers to dresses were dyed this color. When scientists have looked back on this color now, just a square inch cutting of a wallpaper that was popular at the time had enough arsenic in it to kill 2 adults. I know, terrifying, right? They only realized that something was up when a couple of suspicious deaths took place. The first one was a woman who was 19 called Matilda. She painted those silk flowers. She got sick over time and died. And also a small child who had been sucking fake grapes also died really rapidly. And then they started investigating it. And by the late 1800s, early 1900s, they phased it. Incidentally, buildings phased out arsenic a good 20 years before cosmetics companies did. And a large part of this problem happened because nobody knew what was going into the things that were going into buildings. It was fashionable, it was trendy, but nobody was actually asking the question, what is in this stuff? Should we really be building with it? And the food industry nowadays is actually way ahead of that, and we have been taking a lot of inspiration from them. So in order to answer that question, is there redless chemicals in something that you build with? The Living Future Institute has come up with something called the Declare label. And what I'd love you to think about in terms of the Declare label is if you think about the shelves in the supermarket, anything that you pick up that's packaged, it's got ingredients listed on it, it's got where does it come from, it tells you can it be recycled. That's exactly the same thing as what Declare is trying to answer for you for building materials. So it helps you make healthier choices by making things transparent. Now, does transparency fix everything? No, absolutely not. It's just the first step. It's information. It's helping you know what's in something. So Declare label looks exactly like this. It answers 3 simple questions. Where does a product come from? Where can it go end of life? And what is it made of? And the what is it made of piece is down to 100 parts per million. So really, really granular detail. If something is on the red list, it shows up in orange on that list. There is an entire database now of Declare labeled materials, which is pretty exciting. And outside of the US, our region, Australia and New Zealand, have quite a few Declare labels, nearly 14, well, actually we've got to 15% of the number of Declare labels in the world. And it is growing as more and more projects go through the Living Building Challenge, as they go through that granular vetting phase, as more and more projects, not only Living Building Challenge, but Green Star, Passive House, are asking things like, what is in this material? More manufacturers are doing that hard work and answering that question for you. And this is one of those projects that I just wanted to highlight that's done a lot of incredible materials work. This is Burwood Brickworks. It's on Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung country down in Melbourne. It's a commercial shopping centre, and they vetted over 6,000 materials that they included in this building. Now, not every building is going to go to that level, but there are now 6,000 materials that have been vetted that anyone can use, same as the Sustainable Buildings Research Centre. They did the hard work in vetting those materials. And because of them, there are more Declare labels, especially ones that are very popular and can be found in places like Bunnings, for example. Dulux has a Declare label. Barrel Brickworks, just down the road, they've got labels. And so it's a growing need, and it's certainly a growing thing that more and more manufacturers are getting interested in doing it because I guess partly people are getting more and more concerned and are asking the questions, what is in the things that I'm building with. So my top tip to you would be, number one, use products that have a declare label. But number two, if you can't find something, ask the manufacturer if they know what's in their product. The more people that are asking that, the more there is like a social demand for having building materials that actually have that information. We find most manufacturers actually just don't know. It's not that they're including things that are harmful intentionally. They don't know, and they've never been asked that question. None of them have ever said to us, oh, we definitely want to intentionally harm people. They don't. Of course they don't. They want to manage their own risk, but no one has ever asked them for that information. So if you can't specify a declare label product, please ask the manufacturers. The more people that ask, the more of a need that will demonstrate. And then the second petal I really wanted to, delve into is the beauty petal. It's probably the one, when I show those 7 petals, the beauty petal is the one that gets the most sort of consternation. Why is the beauty petal in a sustainability standard? We actually find it to be incredibly important for lots of reasons, but the one that I'm going to delve into today is biophilic design. It's a really key part of the beauty petal and increasingly becoming a very common thing to be talking about in terms of the built environment. So what I'd love you to do today now is just take a moment to think about when you walked here, maybe you parked the car, maybe you walked from home, you were outside for either a couple of minutes or maybe a bit longer. What is special about outside that is unique to outside and is not necessarily found in every building? Sunshine? Yep. Light? Chaos? Yep. Trees? Yes. Light and shade? Beautiful. Anything else? Air quality? And definitely wind and air movement. What else? Noise? Smell? People? Views? Sky? Yeah, nature is complex. It is really layered. It has both very physical components, trees. It has things that amaze us and fill us with awe. It has things that maybe scare us a little bit. Nature can make us feel both safe and it can also make us feel in danger. It also tells us a little bit about where we are based on what plants are there, what the weather's doing, what the color of the rock looks like. So it's got this sense of place, this connection to place. It's got cultural history. It's got social history all connected into it. And biophilic design really taps into that idea that nature is complex. And we spent hundreds of thousands of years as a species in nature. We really affiliate or connect with the natural world. So biophilic design comes from the word bio and philia, so love of living things. And the biophilia hypothesis really says that because we are nature as well, and we've grown up in those spaces, we recognize and understand and connect with the living world. And it helps us in terms of our well-being, our sense of safety. It helps our emotions. It helps us feel calmer. It helps us connect with, who we are rather than a lack of any sensory information, which is often found in the built environment. I'm going to say office spaces are particularly susceptible to this. They make them sort of these boxes with no light, really easy to clean. So are hotel rooms. So are a lot of spaces that we build. And we build them like that for our convenience, but completely eliminating or forgetting the fact that we feel better as a species when we are connected to the web of life. And we've had a lot of people try and codify what that could look like. This is by no means a checklist, so please don't look at this and go, oh my goodness, this is just another thing that we should be ticking off in the building. It's not. This is Kellett's Elements and Attributes, and he's really tried to codify and put a language into biophilic design. There are others. There's another good one that Terrapin Bright Green has done. And he's really tried to think about, how can we divide this up so that we can think about it in terms of our architecture or maybe even asking for things that we want. And there is a lot of things that you can actually do. The one thing I'd love to highlight is a lot of people think that biophilic design is plants. And plants is one thing of 79. So please don't limit yourself to that. There are lots and lots of ways in which you can think about biophilic design. And I wanted to just show you a couple of images that I hope you'll see the value of it and also the connection between how we can think about the natural world and how that articulates or really transfers into architecture. So patterns and shapes, space, height, that idea of awe, that might be a little bit less safe, but taking that sort of element of danger and bringing it into the built environment. I think this one, to some degree, speaks of one of my favorite attributes of biophilic design, which is prospect and refuge. Has anyone heard of that before? Prospect and refuge. It's very natural. All of you will understand this. So if you walk into a restaurant and you look around, where do you want to sit? One of the favorite choices is in a booth or in a table where your back is to the wall, but you can see. It's a sense of prospect and refuge. It's very natural. We all do it. Maybe you've got a cozy chair in your house, in your lovely, thermally comfortable, passive house, designed house. You're nice and warm and cozy in your comfy chair, but you can see what's going on in the rest of the house or what's going on in the street. Prospect and refuge. It's something that our ancestors looked for. They wanted to feel safe so they could see, and so they could also see far. So prospect and refuge is a really lovely and key thing, and one of those easy parts of design that people understand, I think. Reverence and spirituality, so light and shape and form. These beautiful domes. This isn't a mosque in Istanbul. How it brings in like natural motifs and really kind of emulates the awe that can be experienced in nature. Dappled light. A lot of you mentioned sunlight and patterns. How do you include light and space in a way that we experience it? Reflected in pools and moving within an environment. Patterns and natural shapes and forms. Using all of these things within the environment really helps us tap into what it feels like to be alive and to be outdoors. And lots of buildings are really making use of biophilic design in an incredibly meaningful way. This one is one of my favorite examples. It's a hospital in Singapore. There are lots of things that I could pick out here. It's won lots of biophilic design awards, including the Global Stephen Kellett Award. But two things I wanted to say. One is they've got quite a big dementia ward in this hospital. And they've used part of their garden space in terms of biophilic design. So they've thought about that connection to place and particularly the sensory aspects of it. And what they've planted is plants that give off a lot of smell and scent, but were used in cooking quite a lot. And so as the patients are walking through that garden, the smells of those herbs and plants that they've been using all their lives, probably either eating or cooking with, they're being exposed to, and that is stimulating their neural system. They also use that garden as a way for those patients to move and spend time outdoors, which also lowers their cortisol levels and helps them stay calm and heal as best as they can. This building also makes a lot of use of the winds that are a part of that space. Actually, some of the wards have a lot of beautiful views, and there's some great research, which I'll bring up in a minute, around biophilic design in connection to patient health outcomes. They also use prospect and refuge a lot in places where, for example, in the emergency room, where people might be receiving really, really difficult news and they need privacy. They use that idea of prospect and refuge to support that. The biophilic design has got some really fantastic health research going on behind it at the moment. I definitely would recommend you look into that and look into this beautiful project. When they did a survey of the people that were on site on a particular day, over 60% of the people were just regular people not visiting anyone. They've just visited the hospital because the grounds are so beautiful that you wanted to spend time there. I don't know a lot of hospitals where you can do that, to be honest. So pretty remarkable. This is the Van Dusen Centre. It's a botanical garden, sort of main building in Canada. A few things I wanted to pick up here, but one of the key ones is a concept called biomimicry, also part of biophilic design. They've used biomimicry to draw your eye up in this building, really creating that sense of space and awe. But also they've thought about it in terms of how termite mounds thermoregulate. So the air gets drawn up and then it comes back in through the side and helps the air circulate really beautifully in that building. It also really sits well in its place. If you look at it from outside, it really blends in with that landscape and really adds to it without being sort of a clunky building just put there. They've really used that light and biomimicry really, really well. And then the final example, if you cast your mind back to the Declare label building that I talked about, Burwood Brickworks, the shopping centre in Melbourne, this is what the inside looks like. All the way across its roof, it's got this really remarkable mural painted by First Nations artist Mandy Nicholson. It is capturing Wurundjeri Wurrung country, sky country, water country. And that building, not only is that mural quite remarkable, but every single entrance has a biophilic response to that. Every single entrance has its own smellscape and soundscape. They asked the artist, what does country smell like? What does it sound like? And so they added those layers to every single entrance into this building. It's got a very fantastic biophilic design strategy. And for them, they didn't just do it out of the goodness of their own heart. It was built by a property developer. So biophilic design was an important strategy for them to increase the amount of customers that go there, to make them want to spend time there, to go to the restaurants. It was a way to increase visitation. So it had a really commercial lens to it as well. It wasn't just, it would be beautiful. I mentioned a lot of research, and I just wanted to put a snapshot of them up on the screen in case anyone wanted a photo of it. But there's an increasing amount of research coming through in terms of biophilic design now. I'd say the biggest sector that's really interested in it is actually business and commercial. They're trying to think about how do you get people back to the office? And one of the ways to earn the commute is making the office beautiful and interesting and a place that you want to be. So there's a lot of research going in here. And some of the things that they're finding is actually workers are much more productive and the building increases in value. People's well-being increases as well. So lovely to see some research coming through. And of course, none of those sectors that I've put up there is the home. But I actually think the home is where biophilic impacts could have the biggest impact. This is Tall Tree House. It's the winner of the Interior Design Biophilic Design Awards that came out this year. It's quite a remarkable little house. It's very small. It has that light and connection to nature, connection to its sense of place. They've used the colors incredibly well. It really connects to that outside. They've used natural materials that are locally sourced. Fire is an element of biophilic design. It makes us feel safe. Maybe it's not great for indoor air quality, but it does make us feel safe. It also fire has this quality called fractal patterns in it as well. So fractals are something that our brains actually process as something that's quite relaxing, as a pattern we can understand. Some really good research has come out from NASA around the impact of fractals in the space environment and how it helps us relax. But this house, it's a biophilic design award winner, but so much of it were choices that you would be making anyway. What color is the paint? Where do you get the materials from? What are those materials made of? So you're not necessarily spending more money or doing something different. You were just bringing that lens of biophilic design to every element of your design, thinking about the colors. You're painting the wall anyway. You might as well paint it something that helps contribute to your wellness and your well-being. You're choosing those wooden panels anyway. You might as well figure out what are they made from, how are they connected to the space, and choosing those materials that actually not only build you a house, but build you somewhere that can contribute to your well-being. If you would like to find out some more case studies, and this is an envirotecture house that won the Biophilic Design Awards the previous year called Huff and Puff House, there are lots of really lovely case studies on our website, and many of them are residential ones. They'll give you lots of fantastic ideas of how you can bring biophilic design in big and small ways to your own house. So we spend 75% of our time indoors. Every act of design and construction can make the world a better place, but given we spend so much time indoors, I think we can and should expect that it will also contribute to our own well-being. Thanks.